I, Betty Harris Howard, resident and voter of the town of Lebanon, Maine, on behalf of the committee to recall Charles Russell Jr., hereby submit a petition to recall Charles Russell Jr. of Lebanon from his position as selectman, assessor, and overseer of the poor. Whereas Mr. Russell has been named a suspect in a criminal investigation by Maine State Police for theft involving personal property of a resident, including marijuana, multiple livestock, and power tools. Whereas Mr. Russell does not respect the will of the people he represents and intends to overturn the June 2021 election results by forcing yet another special election in hopes of a different outcome, which I'll point out was voted down again. Whereas Mr. Russell's lack of judgment and leadership has cost the taxpayers thousands of dollars in unnecessary lawsuits. Whereas Mr. Russell repeatedly enacts policies and procedures in the town without motioning for a vote within the Board of Selectmen. Whereas Mr. Russell continues to not recuse himself on marijuana-related issues in town while having a conflict of interest not only as a grower, but as a consultant to marijuana limited liability companies here in town. Whereas Mr. Russell continually misuses his authority in his role as selectman. Whereas Mr. Russell has stifled public comment and public access to information by turning off the town's YouTube channel live feed during meetings. Whereas Mr. Russell's conduct has resulted in many Lebanon residents to have a vote of no confidence in him personally and his leadership, we, the undersigned, move to recall Selectman Charles Russell Jr. I would also like to point out a couple of other things, some of which revolve around the Eric Kelly incident. We encourage everyone again to read the police reports and watch the videos from the Board of Selectmen meetings, as well as interviews conducted by some of the news channels which are publicly available online. I would also like to point out that Selectman Russell is facing an investigation from the Human Rights Commission for sexual harassment and fostering a hostile work environment. For these and many other reasons, we are requesting the recall of Selectman Chuck Russell.
All right, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Chuck Russell, Chairman of the Select Board. I'd like to address first a few of the statements on the recall paperwork. Yeah, I did turn off the live feed. We had talked about turning off the camera when things got heated, and the Honorable Karen Garish came to a town meeting to attack my wife over private messages between the two of them. That's not town business. My wife's not an elected official. She's not part of the town government. She's not part of town business. And it was a personal attack on my wife. Second off, I didn't force another election to overturn a vote. We put on things that needed to be changed in the marijuana ordinance due to court proceedings and things that changed at the state level to mirror the state to lessen the chance of lawsuits. There was no attempt to overturn a vote. It was a vote on revisions, not redoing the vote. As for the sexual harassment, which disgusts me that this is still floating around, the town attorney did an investigation into this. And although half of the things she said were, that Ms. Cole said, were lies, the town attorney stated that even if everything in there was true, saying someone looks nice, or as the words were changed to beautiful, even after she told the other selectmen I said she looked nice, and everything else in there does not constitute sexual harassment. So then she went to the Human Rights Commission, and yeah, that's still going on. But she also signed paperwork saying that it would be a confidentiality, and she's proceeded to talk to several people about this as a smear campaign. There's no conflict of interest with being a consultant for a marijuana business in town and voting on these ordinances. Legal opinion on a conflict of interest is not, if it's going on the ballot, if I'm voting for something that's going on the ballot, it is not a conflict of interest no matter what. Because the people decide. I don't decide. So their conflict of interest is not actual. Lebanon's a difficult town, I'm finding, to be a selectman in. We don't have a lot of money in our budget. The tax rate is extremely low. The square miles of the town, I think it's in the top 15 of the state. Our mill rate is 15.85. I think we haven't had a reevaluation in 20 or 30 years. Even before the spike in market prices of property here, we were about 20% undervalued, 25% undervalued. That brings our mill rate down to a number of probably under 12 right now, which is one of the lower ones in the state. And a lot of square miles, and the population per square mile is not very large. So it's a difficult town to run. When I came into office, a couple of things I noticed was the fire station and the fire department seemed like it was having issues. The transfer station was. Myself and Selectman Adams led looking into the fire department and what was going on there, and we, Selectman Adams knew Roger Hooper, who's the chief of York County. He agreed to come in and do an assessment of our fire department. His report came back, and this is straight from him. Weaknesses: no organizational structure to the department, non-compliance with state regulation, inconsistent application of policy and procedure, disregard for chain of command. Threats: fail to take advantage of opportunities, lack of funding for upgrades and implement new plans, lack of buy-in from employees, management, and elected officials, complacency. We've done a lot with the fire department. We took a building that they said was condemned. We figured out a way to make it something we could be proud of. Betty Harris Howard stood here and talked about the other towns around us that have fire departments that are just beautiful. Milton, I think it was a $4 million fire department. Tax rate in Milton, I believe, is 24. The mill rate is $24. She said she wanted something to be proud of. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm pretty proud of our fire department. A lot of volunteers. Deborah Dory Wilson has led a charge to get things done over there. And Selectman Adams came up with a company, I'm not sure how he did it, that writes grants. We hired them to write us 4 grants. We got $30,000 in a grant. Deb Wilson currently has $12,000 donated for a new roof. The building was just painted at a fraction of the cost to taxpayers. All these things have saved taxpayers so much money and allowed us to function and spend money in other areas. The transfer station. Transfer station is a big hole sucking money. There was a 6-year contract signed, and the contract really wasn't in the favor of the town. After looking at the contract and looking into other options, I talked to Eco Maine, got a quote from them. Waste Management came to me, and we ended up renegotiating a contract that is probably going to save the board or the town anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 once it's completely implemented. They came to us, ripped up the final year of the contract, and allowed us to do that. With all the things going on with this recall and things, it's been stalled up there, but we've already saved money with the new contract and the way it's worded. It was worded in a way that both sides, we were getting it on both ends, and it was costing us money both ways for recycling and for household waste. Recycling is coming back. We saved the town literally probably $100,000, and over the next several years, maybe $500,000. There's a learning curve to being a selectman. And there's a reason there's constant turnover with selectmen. Constant turnover. It's not worth it for people to put up with the headaches. My dad told me when I got elected, if you do it right, it's not easy. One of the first things that happened to me when I came into office was trying to figure out what was going on and just to learn how to deal with it and deal with the attacks. People talk about the audits and the bonding issue. We're not bonded right now because of years and years of problems. Audits were behind a little bit more than normal, but not much more than normal. Things have been improved with the audits, and a lot of policies have been put in place to protect the taxpayers. Some of the things out there on Facebook and everywhere else, attacks of me personally, private messages to friends of mine that somebody has a bullet with mine and his name on it.
Yep.
Friend of mine being told that his pretty little beard's going to get shaved. And these are facts. I mean, we have these messages. There's a lot of talk about me overstepping my boundaries as selectman. There's a lot of responsibilities as the chairman, and sometimes decisions need to be made. And they're decisions that, in circumstances that I've never been in before. And sometimes you have to make decisions, and sometimes if you look back on them, you'd like to do them a little different. Sure, some of them, absolutely. Again, with the situation at Eric Kelly's house, well, there was no house there. It was living illegally with no occupancy permit in a shed. Animals running everywhere,
That's right.
people everywhere,
That's right.
animals with no water,
That's right.
plants in the middle of a field, basically, not secured, kids and people everywhere. And yeah, I made a decision there. It wasn't theft. If it was theft, the state police wouldn't have been notified before that everyone even knew what was going on. You don't take something from Walmart and then call the state police and tell them you have it at your house. Our town's been turned on its head for a year and a half, based on completely bogus narrative that was largely fanned and hyped by completely irresponsible people, several which are on our budget committee. Michael Walsworth.
No, just keep it.
Okay.
You want to talk
One of
about
the budget committee members,
Jen.
well, several, brought a lawsuit.
Okay.
These same people campaigned and lied. They said the vote no, convincing people that if they voted no, the marijuana ordinance would go away. Harrison Thorpe said to me that they didn't want it here in town. They didn't want it. He petitioned to get the vote shot down. Saying no means no, honor the vote, all these things. The Honorable Karen Garish, honor the vote, honor the vote. It wasn't to take the ordinance out, it was to revise it. Several of the lines in this lawsuit filed by several members of the town, including Harrison's girlfriend or wife, state in there that there's unconstitutional and illegal things and things that can't be enforced. Those are the same things we tried to change.
Right.
So these people campaigned against it, led a campaign of misdirection, and then turned around and filed a suit against the town anyways. People like to point out that maybe procedure is not always done properly with notice and things like that. That's true. We do miss some things, and when we miss them, we try and enact things to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Things are going to get missed, and they always make it look like we're trying to hide something. Several complaints for the ethics violation was I silence people in meeting. I don't let people speak. When I started as chairman, I let people know that when they could come and talk, and I let people talk. I let Chris Kilpatrick berate me for over a half an hour.
Right.
Terry Poirier, I let her berate me for over an hour because I didn't want to silence them to make it look like I was stopping them from speaking. Another person filed an ethics complaint saying that I don't run the meetings sternly enough. So, and it's the same group. Do they want Robert's rules like Betty asked for? Or do they want me to let people talk? I don't know. It seems like a no-win situation. As for the trespass order, That was done with legal counsel. Again, it was a decision that needed to be made. And I'm going to read you a statute, Maine Criminal Code. 2 minutes. A person is guilty of obstructing government administration if the person interferes by force, violence, or intimidation, or by any physical act with a public servant performing or purporting to perform an official function. A public servant is someone that's elected. There was never a no trespass order taken out against Terry until she did this to James, and it's on video. She obstructed James. She physically put her body against him. That was the reasoning behind the state police and the town attorney allowing the no trespass order. Right now, our budget committee consists of a father and son, a cousin, close family friends, and these are the people that are trying to take control of this town. The people that are behind this recall have run for selectman several times, want to run for selectman, want to be road commissioner. They want to seize power in this town because they want to do things their way. They want things done with mowing contracts and things like that handed out, how they want to do it. Even if you don't see us out there working for you every day, we are out there working for somebody. My phone rings constantly. I am constantly helping residents of the town when they can't reach somebody, or they need advice, or they need help. The last thing is Tony McDonough. Yeah, I voted to forgive his $20,000 fine. There's a lot to that. Tony was given a permit to build on the water by a state and a town official, and then told to stop. His neighbor did the same thing. I know they're not exactly the same. His neighbor's wife worked for the town attorney. His neighbor was fined $4,500, allowed to finish his house. Mr. McDonough incurred about $140,000 in fines, fees, and everything else. So yeah, I was for forgiving $20,000 to Tony because he wasn't treated right. I had never met Tony before I ran for election, and yeah.
Thank you. I just want to point out some facts that either need reiterated or pointed out initially. We're not asking Chuck to be recalled for his work to improve the fire stations and transfer stations. That's noble work. We appreciate that. What we are asking is that Chuck be recalled for extremely unethical and some illegal activity, as well as corruption. One of the most mind-boggling statements I've heard from Chairman Russell, as well as others on the select board, is that in spite of the fact that they know our town adult use marijuana ordinance is illegal, has items in it against the state constitution, and invites lawsuits against the town, they did not choose, as they were advised by 2 separate attorneys, to put before the town a moratorium on the marijuana ordinance until it could be corrected and put in a legal standing. Instead, they chose to try to revise the ordinance under 2 different votes, both of which failed. At that time, they again did not choose to put the ordinance on a moratorium or that before the voters so that we could do that. But instead, they said, and I quote, "We have to issue these applications and licenses so that we can get the money from these marijuana businesses to defend ourselves against the lawsuits we know are coming from those same marijuana businesses." It boggles our minds that they would openly invite lawsuits against themselves and try to collect money from those who are suing us to pay for our defense. Also, it needs to be noted that Drummond Woodsum, the town attorney that's retained by the town, is also on retainer by some of the marijuana businesses in town, which is a direct conflict of interest, and I'm sure would be very interesting to the Maine Bar Association to know that. The fact is that Chuck and many of the other selectmen do not know state laws or town ordinances. When citizens come to the Board of Selectmen meeting and point out what the ordinances say, or another selectman points out what they say, the most common answer you will hear if you watch the videos is, "I didn't know that." Or they'll contradict what it says and then be corrected. Often when asked a question about an ordinance or a state statute or anything that's going on, the answer that Chairman Russell gives is, okay. Okay is not an answer. Okay is, I heard you, I'm choosing not to answer you because I don't care about you or the town ordinances. I'm going to do whatever I please. I don't know if many people in the town know, but in 2018, the Board of Selectmen passed a policy that makes themselves self-governing. If anyone brings an ethics complaint against the Board of Selectmen, then the policy is that the Board of Selectmen will take that ethics complaint into an executive session and investigate themselves. There is no system of checks and balances, which is completely contradictory to the United States Constitution and our form of a democratic republic government, which is founded on a system of checks and balances. The Board of Selectmen are basically a self-governing body. They can do what they want and choose to punish or not punish themselves as they see fit. I think it's important to know, they have said that, many people on the other side have said that they feel threatened, have received death threats or physical harm threats. The truth of the matter is, every town resident feels threatened by the town government. We live in fear, and for the last 21 years, I have not gotten involved in town politics because I attended a couple of town meetings way back where there was just unbelievable chaos going on and verbal threats. And I have known people who raised a question at a town meeting, and then the selectman came by or somebody came by and raised their property tax rates, denied them a building permit, or some other accusation that was false and made life hard on them. So the fact of the matter is, Chairman Russell, I and many residents in this town live in fear of you and your self-imposed, unwielding power that you think you have in this town. If my dog was to go out of our house and drink out of a puddle in the yard, I would have no doubt that if you wanted to, as a retribution to me and my family, call the animal control officer, have her come and take that dog, and then come on my property and steal who knows what.
Well, you mentioned that you haven't gotten involved for 21 years because of other threats and things like that. That wasn't this board. This board also did not write the ethics procedure, so that was another board as well. As for the illegal impact fees that Michael stated, that was blessed by our attorney, as were the referendums. And I don't know if you have a law degree, but I know we have one of the best law firms in the state of Maine. They do not represent, are not on retainer by anybody in this town. Matter of fact, Amy, our town attorney, told me that they turn down clients that want to work in Lebanon because of conflict of interest. There's no way I'm going to know every statute, and there's no way I'm going to be able to answer questions about it, but I do follow up with the town attorney if it's something as that. The people that gave us recommendations, the attorneys that gave us recommendations to put a moratorium on it, are the ones that want to do what they want in this town with marijuana and not have any competition. Those are not our town attorneys. Those were forwarded to our town attorneys, and we went with what they talked to us about. The reason we pushed to get the referendums changed was because the town needed the money. And if we chose to do a moratorium, there would be no marijuana fees to defend a lawsuit. It would be coming out of our budget. If we chose to implement the ordinances, there would be money to fight the lawsuits. Little did I know it would be from our budget committee members and other residents. Harrison talked about me running a meeting and shutting people off. Like I said earlier, I let people berate me and go on and on and on. I didn't run it with an iron fist or very strict until it just got to the point where it was just out of control. And again, people are criticizing me for running too strict a meeting. People are criticizing me for running too soft a meeting. I guess you can't please all people all the time. As for Mr. Watkins' accusations, those messages were sent last night by my wife, and not the night before. I said I had no knowledge. Paul agreed that he hadn't shared it with me. That is on video, and I'm going to stand by that. The ethics complaint about the dog licenses, yeah, you're right. I do need to license my dogs. So, yeah. And I am not deeply involved in the marijuana business in town. I do not have a caregiver card. Some people in our family have medical marijuana cards. I made very minimal money from one business in town that I consulted with. Other than that, I have no ties to the marijuana business. But I do know that this town needs money to regulate marijuana and regulate what's coming. And you may not get the 6 stores or the 4 stores on 202. You'll still have the 4 stores that are there. You won't get the 2 additional, but you will get grows popping up everywhere. And a code officer that doesn't even have the time to deal with the things now will be stretched. And your tax dollars will go to stopping people that your neighbors will be growing marijuana everywhere. Voting on my own recall things, yes. Yeah, I did. I voted on the dates that we did the last one. We talked about it as a group, and I voted on it. This year, nobody noticed that I signed my own warrant for the recall. Why is that? Because we needed 3 signatures on the warrant to take it to ballot without causing a headache for the town. Town attorney said, you probably don't want to sign your own recall, do you, Mr. Russell? I said, I have no problem signing my own recall. I will be the 3rd signature, and we'll let the voters decide. If you guys want to push me around, that's fine. Ultimately, it's up to the voters. A lot of accusations, again, standing here telling me you're afraid of me. And taking your dog if it goes and drinks out of a puddle. A little bit of an exaggeration there, I think. Yeah, a little bit. And I don't make the decisions to take the dogs. Animal control makes those decisions.
30 people on my house, why?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I got there and there was people everywhere. So that was, neighbors were there. You had 12 pigs in your neighbor's yard, according to his statement. Rooting up his front yard, rooting up his thing, looking for food, drinking a whole kiddie pool full of water. So yeah, it was chaos, man. Your animals were everywhere. The cows are knocking each other over to get a drink. You know,
Cows didn't get out,
Right.
only the pigs got out.
so,
Please be quiet.
so that's, I guess that covers all of them.
No, did you take your sexual
Wait a minute.
harassment class yet?
Corinne,
Nope, I have not, but I will. But I've taken several over the years in management jobs that I've had, so. All right, I want to thank everybody for coming out.